There could be a massive move on the way for the Edmonton Oilers as they're targeting a former Stan Bowman draft pick there. Lots of reports coming out surrounding that. And the Oilers taking on the Seattle Kraken tonight in the Pacific Northwest at the Climate Pledge Arena. We will have that one previewed for you today on the channel. And speaking of the channel, we are very close to 4,000 subscribers. If you haven't done so already, folks, make sure you do so. With 70% of you watching these videos haven't hit that button. So, folks, what are you waiting for? Make sure you join the ride here at Oilers Digest. There should be another fun season of Oilers hockey. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? From the fourth period there, David Pinata, regarding the Lukas Reichel trade rumors. Three teams are among the teams believed to have interest, with the Vancouver Canucks, the San Jose Sharks, and the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, lots of Pacific Division interest there, not just the fourth period, but also Frank Saravalli, linking, the Oilers to the Blackhawks. While many might assume it's only a matter of time before he breaks through, the Blackhawks, I should say, appear to believe it won't happen in Chicago. As a result, they are working on a deal to move him potentially before rosters are finalized next week, and the expected return, however, will not be significant. Sources suggest Chicago's looking at a mid to late round pick. I mean, it's too good to be true, right? Which would work well for the Oilers. That will likely not be very pleasant for fans in Chicago who recognize the raw talent that Reichel possesses there. Unfortunately, the organization seems ready to move on, even if the trade value does not reflect the player's upside there. And Lukas Reichel, drafted in 2020 there, 17th overall by Stan Bowman in the Chicago Blackhawks there. So, I mean, lots of potential for Reichel when he played with Team Germany at the World Junior Hockey Championships there. I thought, there was something there with a player, and, just hasn't been up to snuff there in his young NHL career there. I mean, 70 games last year with the Chicago Blackhawks, 8 goals, 14 assists for a total of 22 points, 16 points the year before that, 15 in 23 games, with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2022-23. So, yeah, there was something there. But, a change of scenery seems to be what would work well for Lukas Reichel in the Chicago Blackhawks there. Now, is the price of a mid to late round pick, again, that's a little too good to be true here for the kind of player that, Reichel was, hyped up to be during that draft year there. I know the 2020 and 21, draft years were a little bit weird there, but again, when he played with Berlin in the DEL, there was a player there. But with, Chicago, I can sense, sort of the frustration both on the organization's part that their young players aren't realizing their full potential there, or playing up to their full potential, in the player themselves. I mean, Reichel, sticking on this sinking ship in Chicago there, year after year. I mean, that rebuild, I'm not one to throw, stones out of a glass house when it comes to how a team should rebuild there, but, this team should be, getting along quite well there, especially with a guy like, Connor McDavid. But again, Reichel in the Blackhawks, not necessarily on the same page there. And, I'd take him on the Oilers. Would there be, a bit of a tricky fit for him to work on this team? Absolutely, but you know what? That's for, Kris Knoblauch to sort of figure out where players go there, and he's been trying to figure that out for training camp there. But, there's two sides of the coin there. You have, Saravalli and, David Pinata. I know those aren't the two most reliable insiders, quote unquote, in the NHL there, but two sides of the coin. They have those two. And then also from Oilers Daily there, sources have told me this is not true, and that Reichel to Edmonton is very unlikely. Quote tweeting Jim Matheson there, saying, as yesterday, tweeted yesterday, the Oilers kicking tires on Lukas Reichel, Bowman first round pick in 2020. He liked his skill. Current regime, obviously, not so much. As they say, badly needs a change of scenery, and now where he fits here at 1.2 million is debatable. Not just, Oilers Daily, but also, Bob Stauffer, the litmus test for the Oilers organization on the Oilers Now radio show. Flat out, insulting the idea of, trading for Lukas Reichel. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, the Oilers are going to trade for Lukas Reichel? I think it's unlikely. I've been wrong before, though, but it's unlikely they trade for him. And, we've seen Bob Stauffer sort of throw out the ideas of, the Oilers trading for players, to test the fan base and how they would react. But Bob Stauffer, he likes the kind of player that Lukas Reichel is, but just doesn't seem to be fit for him, in Bob Stauffer's opinion, on this Oiler team. As you can see there, the top nine with no Zach Hyman there. This would obviously change with Zach Hyman there, with Leon Draisaitl centering his own line, and maybe that's when you sort of figure out, okay, Reichel next to Draisaitl. I mean, putting the a bunch of Germans on the same team. The Oilers have tried that in the past there. Dominic Cahoon, Toby Reeder, probably the most obvious one there, when Bob Nicholson called him out for not scoring enough goals, apparently, because that would get them to the playoffs if he scored 10 or 12 goals. But Reichel, he's a speedy winger, and I've seen mini stats analytics sort of compare him to Dylan Holloway there. Reichel be a less physical Dylan Holloway, and I think whenever Leon Draisaitl center the line with Dylan Holloway, that seemed to bring out the best in him there. So Reichel in Draisaitl, that German connection there. I mean, they've been named to the German national Olympic team, so there could be something there. But again, when this team is fully healthy, I just don't really see a spot for Lukas Reichel, but again, that's up to Kris Knoblauch to decide. Hey, it's a young player. I'm obviously not gonna get him big time minutes there, but again, the speed and the skill are there. It's just the translation of Reichel when he played in junior and over in Europe to the NHL game. That's just something he quite hasn't figured out there, and I'm sure he's frustrated, and the Chicago Blackhawks are frustrated as well there. But a mid to late round pick, if that is, the asking point, why not? I mean, what the hell? A reclamation project, the Oilers have taken many of those over the years. There's sure some haven't worked, but some have worked. I mean, Vasily Podkolzin, this would pretty much be Podkolzin 2.0 there. Podkolzin in the Canucks just wasn't the match that they had hoped it would have been. And then, the Oilers trading a late round pick for Podkolzin. And look where we are now. He is, flourishing in Edmonton. So, it could very well be the same for Lukas Reichel. But, from one Pacific Northwest team in the Vancouver Canucks to the other, as the Oilers are in Seattle tonight at 8 o'clock Mountain there, the second last preseason game for the Oilers, as their last one will also be on the road there as they travel north to go to Vancouver, BC. And lots of news here. It's going to be a younger Oilers squad tonight. Kris Knoblauch said after Tuesday's practice that young forwards like Matt Savoy, Ike Howard, Josh Szymanski, and Quinn Hudson, along with defenseman Arturo Leppinen in Camden, loving the way Leppinen has played during the preseason there. You got to let him marinate down in Bakersfield, and I think he will be a fantastic defenseman later on for the Oilers. Are all likely to play on Wednesday against the Kraken, both out of interest in necessity for the Oilers, as there's been an illness ripping around the Oilers room. Forwards David Tomashek and Noah Philp were both absent on Tuesday due to illness, prompting the Oilers to recall a few more forwards from Bakersfield after obviously they were cut. I mean, that's quite awkward, isn't it? To ensure they have enough players for their upcoming road trips to Seattle in Vancouver in case they remain unavailable. And that was the case this morning, as they recalled Viljami Marjala, James Hamblin, and Connor Clattenburg. So they obviously loved what they saw. They know what they can get out of James Hamblin, but they'll probably love what they saw out of Marjala and Clattenburg, myself included there. Marjala, crafty forward, and Clattenburg, a prototypical Oiler there. I mean, he's big, he's heavy, he's tough, is very willing to drop the gloves there, and he also showed some scoring touch, not just during the rookie camp, but also during the preseason. And they've been recalled from the Condors for tonight's Oilers preseason matchup in Seattle there. I mean, the projected lineup, it's going to be all over the place. I'm not even going to try to guess what the Oilers will roll out for lines, but Calvin Pickard will get the start tonight, and then Stuart Skinner will get the final start of the preseason on Friday. I do believe it's Friday against the Vancouver Canucks there. And also, Knoblauch said that defenseman Jake Walman is on track to play on opening night. He was, originally listed as day-to-day, despite being, unlikely to feature in either one of these week's exhibition games. And then forward Max Jones is out against Seattle, but remains a possibility to suit up against the Canucks. And then, as I mentioned, Pickard will start against the Kraken on Wednesday, and then Skinner gets the last start there. So hockey is getting so much more closer, folks. And I mean, lots of news. The Ingram news, it's only going to get better from here, or at least we hope. But that is it for today's video, folks. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Should the Oilers try to go after Lukas Reichel, or just because it's a former Stan Bowman draft pick, you don't have to always go after the former Blackhawks, or wherever they've gone after Stan Bowman originally drafted there. I mean, he'd be I'd love him on the Oilers, but again, when the team is fully healthy, where do you fit him in? I mean, that's the puzzle that you sort of have to figure out once Zach Hyman is officially back in 100% there. But let me know down in the comments, and who's going to be one player for you to watch tonight against the Seattle Kraken. I think I'm going to look at Connor Clattenburg, from a 7th-round pick or something like that, a late-round pick a couple years back, to where he is right now in the Oilers organization. He's a wild card, but hell, I love him. He's one fantastic wild card on this Oiler team. But take care, have a great rest of the day, folks. I'm Matt.